How many interviews have you done on this? Dozens?
No,
I
don't really go out and interview.
Have you presented at any SWAT conferences?
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line podcast. We've got our friend Tim Gramins from Skokie Police Department. You made a funny face there, not do your name right?
No, you did it great.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Just making sure. You're like, oh man, my name. Met Tim at a training class a few months ago and asked him to come and do this interview. I know you don't do a lot of them, so I appreciate you doing that. I'm sure everybody that's viewing this is going to get a ton out of it. We've done a couple of discussions like this. If you Google Tim's name, you'll find out some more info, but why we want to share this with you is not because this is new information or a new story, but some of you folks are tuning in, and this is the kind of stuff that you look for, and so we're bringing him to you, new to you, not new to the world by any means. So, Tim, tell us a little bit about your background. You're a sergeant now with Skokie PD.
Correct, yeah, I'm a sergeant at Skokie PD. I've been a police officer for 24 years now.
Skokie's a big suburb of Chicago.
Suburb of Chicago, just north of Chicago. We border Chicago, about 70,000 residents.
Okay.
So work for an agency with about 124 sworn police officers. As I mentioned, 24 years on the job. Been there the whole time? Been there the whole time as a cop. I've done our SWAT team or TIU team for 19 years.
Oh, wow. That's probably the longest guy on the team there.
Right now, no. So the commander of the SWAT team and I are the same amount of time on.
Okay.
So 19 years, long time. About time to call it quits and let the young officers take that spot. But thoroughly enjoyed the SWAT. The training we get for SWAT is incredible.
Awesome.
So right now I run in special ops sergeant, so I do programs and plans. So I just finally got off the road, hit an inside spot. So
you're training all day long and setting up training programs?
Running programs. I run the range program. So yeah, it's pretty good.
All those many years of training, now the city's getting their money's worth out of you, having you dispense that.
Payback, yes. Yeah. So.
And you're not out there grinding it on the street.
No, not too often anymore. So now it's more use the knowledge I've been given and share it with other officers at the department. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's good.
So we brought you on because once upon a time you were involved in a super violent shooting, right? This happened what year?
So 2008. So it's been 10 years.
10 years ago. I remember when it happened. When I had met you, the instructor, it was a Dave Spalding course. I remember he said Youre shooting, and I'm like, I wonder who that guy is. And nowadays it's not too hard to find out. So I saw your name tag and Googled it, and asked you later in the day if we could do this. So 2008. Why don't you just tell us the story?
So August 25th, 2008. It was my first day back from vacation. Northbrook Police Department gave out a bank robbery via ISPR and the Illinois State Police Emergency Radio Network. That happened about 5:30 p.m., 17:30 hours.
Okay.
A Fifth Third Bank up in Northbrook off Skokie Boulevard, which is right next to the Expressway or I-94.
And just so everybody knows, where we're talking about in Chicago, there's a web of major interstate highways that go all around.
All around and through, yeah. So 94 goes right through. So they put that out on the radio network that we monitor. Gave out a offender description. It was a male black, armed with a handgun, white South Park T-shirt.
So this guy had already robbed the bank and was gone.
Robbed the bank, out the door. He had actually robbed the bank. It was 6 months earlier. Same offender. Wow. So the bank actually...
Same bank?
Same bank.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
The bank knew right away when this guy came in. Obviously, he had the handgun out. Been able to watch the video. He comes in right with a handgun.
Did he have a mask on or anything?
Bandana. Black bandana and a black hat. So they knew him right away.
He thought, worked once, I'll try it again.
He came back to the well. Wow. Yeah, came back to the well. But they gave out a pretty good suspect vehicle description on the radio, white Pontiac. They gave that out with a possible plate. 94, once they give it that possible plate, it comes back to Chicago. So obviously Northbrook to Chicago, quickest way to get there is right down I-94, sure. The Eaton's Expressway. So a bunch of us monitoring the radio. We went out, set up shop, kind of on the Eaton's Expressway. Two officers made a stop on a different white car, wasn't the car. I hop on the expressway looking for traffic. On the way down, you just kind of cycle through, go up and down, cycle in Eaton's.
So were you on one of the overpasses?
Yeah, so I hopped on at Old Orchard Road.
Okay.
So I hopped on, and white car goes by. Hop on, I'm driving southbound. Catch up to that white car. Actually end up right next to the guy. He kind of gives me that look of, oh my, there's the police.
Shit.
That look like, the shit, there's the police look. Run that plate, it comes back, on my MDT or, computer in the car. And I pop in behind this guy, and as soon as I popped in behind him, I was going to, try and get on the radio. He takes off, high rate of speed.
So
pops him left hand. Yeah, so we're kind of getting into a little pursuit. He was approaching Tui when this happens.
So now you're back in your neighborhood. You're back in...
Close. So pulls a 3-lane change to hop off into Cloverleaf on Tui to go eastbound.
Okay.
So I'm still, trying to catch up to him at this point in time. Makes a right to go southbound on Skokie or Cicero.
Mm-hmm.
So this is when I get on the radio, finally make some radio contact because airtime gets tied up trying to get on a police radio. If people don't do it, it's just hard to explain. So I get on the radio. I've got one running from me. He makes a left turn to go eastbound on Estes, passes up Keating, then makes a hard right on Kilpatrick. And that's where he came to an abrupt stop. So...
Which that's a residential neighborhood.
Residential neighborhood, yeah.
Rows of brick
Lincolnwood,
homes.
yeah, nice, pretty nice houses in Lincolnwood. So as soon as he made that stop, here, my initial thought is, okay, he's going to bail in this neighborhood. He's going to run, foot pursuit, because that, happens quite frequently where they'll pop out and run. But instead, this time, right as I'm pulling up, get up behind him, he opens up the door. Instead of running, he right away, his right hand, I see he's coming out with a silver handgun.
Oh, wow.
9. So I'm, slamming on the brakes, unbuckling my seatbelt, coming up to draw. While he's doing that, he gets 4 rounds off of me. His first 4.
So he stops, gets out, and by the time you are catching up, he's shooting.
Yeah, shooting. Yeah, so he's shooting, running back at the car. So he's running right back at me. So it's just unbuckle the seatbelt.
How far away from you to him when he started shooting you?
So he started shooting right after he popped out of his driver's side door. Okay. So it was about 15 feet because I ended up a lot closer on the stop than I would have because just the rate of the speed of the car and the turn.
By the time you locked it up and
got it, exactly.
You the distance
you're
closed.
There, yeah. Okay. So you're there. So he comes out shooting right away. So I just unbuckle, come up, start shooting through my windshield at him, which, worked out fairly well. So came up, he's firing, running back, right back to my driver's side door. And I'm shooting it. And if you look on, you find the pictures anywhere out there, but if you look, you'll see the rounds tracking up my windshield. There's 3 different holes, and those are, outbound as he gets closer, as he's running up. So I've got a group, another group, and another group as he's coming right up next to the driver's side door. Correct. Mm-hmm. As he's running back. So as closer he goes, the higher up and to the left as he's coming back.
I got to ask you. So most of us have trained shooting in a vehicle before with Ear Pro on, and every time I do, I put plugs in and my Ear Pro, and if you haven't done that, you've seen it at least. How was that in the car?
So, if you're familiar with concepts of, I've had the ability to go to a lot of great training and force science was one of the things. But his rounds I heard just fine. But my rounds, I didn't hear at all.
Didn't hear at all.
So
literal auditory exclusion.
Auditory exclusion of my rounds.
Just like they teach.
But I'm hearing his rounds. But I'm also hearing... so one of the neighbors was out yelling, so I could hear everything else just fine.
You tuned into the neighbor yelling?
Just not my round. So it's kind of hard to explain how it works, but yeah. So couldn't hear my rounds, heard his rounds, but once my rounds started going off, then no more rounds. But I'm still able to hear the yelling and everything else going on. So it's, no explanation, just the way it works. So he ends up firing, one of his last rounds right through my driver's side window. Goes right through the seat behind me. And while that's happening...
So literally that round went between your head and the pillar?
Correct. So, and it lodged right through the back of my seat. So, but I'm leaning forward like this, so it went right over.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was kind of...
That's
a close one. Yeah.
That's the close one.
So the close one, was the ones where he's blasting right through the driver's side window. So, those were close ones. But then... Obviously, I was carrying a Glock 21 45, so I've got 13 in that. He had, I can't remember what he had, but it's out there, whatever. I think a 5906. But he had 17. His last one, he stovepiped on his last one. So he ran empty, firing through my driver's side window, and I ran empty, firing out. So we're both running empty on our handguns at the same time.
Are contact almost a couple feet apart, and both your guns go empty.
Going dry, right there. So... which, obviously kind of worked out well for both of us, if the way you look at it. But he then went running back to his car.
Which is only like a car length away.
15 feet away, okay. Yeah. So one car length in between both of us. So he headed back, dumped his first handgun on the seat in the car and grabbed the second handgun. So then he comes out with a burst of 380. So that was his reload, was grab a second gun. My reload was bail out of the car. I hop on the radio, and then I actually went forward in front of my car and did the backside of his car.
Okay.
And I think that might have just been because I was chasing after him, because that's where I saw, he went away, and I went this way, hop on the radio. Hey, shots fired. I need help. And then I did my reload on the run to get to the back side of his car.
You came out, kind of
forward,
did one of these.
like a little S, yeah. Mm-hmm. Forward and front, back,
You're on his
back passenger side, rear.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where was he?
In the car, and then he came popping back straight.
On the driver's
side, and he's looking for me. I don't think he had any idea.
So if this was the vehicle, you're here, he's here now.
So say this is his car. My my squad will be my water bottle, right? So he's back here, I'm over here.
I got you.
So when he comes back out with the second gun, shooting, looking at me, he's probably thinking I'm still in my car. He had no idea.
He probably didn't know if you hit you or not either.
Yeah, correct. So he had no idea I had him flanked.
Okay.
So after that, so I started shooting at him from over here, and then he's over here, and just circumstances, the way it worked out, since he had no idea, I thought it was, working out well for me. And you just kind of recognize moments of opportunity, I guess. That's how I look at it. You just recognize, hey, I've got an advantage right now. So I just ran right at him, started shooting at him.
And you're only 15, 20 feet apart.
And not even anymore. Okay. So I ran right by him. We passed probably within 3 feet of each other, arm's length away.
You went right past him?
Right past him. Went right past him. And then I ran around to the back side of my squad car. So that was my second mag.
Loop around him.
Correct. All looped right around.
Are you hitting him at all during this?
Well, you think you are. When I was seated in my squad car, I had a really good sight picture. He's running up, and that's why you see 3 really good groups tracking up and left. So I had a pretty good sight picture. He's running. When I was running and shooting, that was just point shooting for the most part. Point shooting because I'm running right by. I'm like right next to you. So, and then I ran around backside of my squad, and second mag. That's my second mag. Do my reload on the run, get to the backside of my squad, and he's over here on the other side of the street. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So, because he moved up after me.
Now, there's other parked cars and such out there?
No, so it's just our 2 cars in the street, which, the intersection was clear. So then when I was running around, I don't know if anyone remembers the Hollywood bank shootout when the SWAT team comes up and they skip rounds under the car. So I figured, well, because he's kind of doing the up-down duck thing, so I'm like, well, I'll try that, right?
Just popped into your head.
Yeah, and that's kind of and that's why it's so important to study, if that makes sense. Study, what happens in shootings, because you'll learn, say, hey, and
which is what we're doing here.
Well, yeah, but if you train and learn, and pay attention, and you take small little things from shootings, and then you actually try and see what works, what doesn't work. Well, obviously I had never really, I skipped rounds, but never underneath the car. So, okay, I'll try this because he's doing up down. So, why this was good is I shot my tire. So, and then I shot 2 rounds into my car. Well, that was good to me because when you're shooting into a person, you don't see impact, right? It's not like you're not seeing anything. If they're wearing clothes, it's going through the clothes. It's not like you're going to get the feedback from a paper target. So reactive targets are really good to shoot, like shooting steel or shooting something that's going to react so you know you're making that hit as opposed to just, shooting paper. Shooting paper is, okay, great, but, what's it really doing for you? Because you're seeing the round. So try and shoot something where you're not going to see the round.
Sure.
Is kind of an important thing. Like put clothes on that target where you're not going to see where those rounds are going. And then, designate like hit areas or something. But so I finally saw where my hits were going and I knew that this isn't working. So I did my second mag change. And then because my car was on the crust of the street, when I dropped prone on the grass next to this tree, I actually had about 4 feet that I could see a window. So because of the crust. So I had about a 4-foot window. So that worked out pretty well for me when I dropped prone. And after seeing that these other rounds weren't having any effect. And obviously this guy's, still shooting at me after, 2 mags, and not knowing where he hit. So I dropped prone, really took my time, got a really good sight picture, took 3 shots to a CNS. Once I took those 3 shots, I knew I hit him. Great sight picture, and obviously I also had the instantaneous feedback that he just dropped to the ground. So those 3 shots were really good.
Were you talking to him at all throughout this?
No, I don't. You don't really know. I mean, it's not really too much time to be talking between.
What was the elapsed time to this point? Do you think?
So start to finish was 56 seconds.
Is that from some type of
timed from like radio traffic? Okay. When I say I'm out, which is when the gun I need help at the end. Yeah. So that was 56 seconds. So they timed it to 56 seconds. Plus then they have if you listen to the 911 call in from the family on the phone.
Okay, so there was a neighbor.
They're called in, correct. You can actually hear the shots going off in the background on the 911 call.
Okay.
So when they put this all together, it was 56 seconds of shooting.
I remember the report I read, this neighbor's like cheering you on.
Yeah.
Get him.
Yeah. And you can actually, he's a great guy. You can actually hear him, but that was kind of nice because otherwise you're kind of by yourself. And this is where, obviously we met through a course, right? Mm-hmm. And, one thing that I think law enforcement needs to do a lot when it comes to shooting is interact a lot more with just citizens, if that makes sense. And I think they'd be absolutely amazed with just the amount of skill, the amount of sincerity, the amount of desire to be, like a good citizen or helpful.
I gotcha.
I mean, if that makes any sense, I think they kind of miss out on that because I think sometimes law enforcement thinks that we got to look out for each other. Well, we're looking out for the community, right? And I think the more we interact with the community, and especially with the shooting community and armed citizens and concealed carriers, I think that's huge because, I mean, one, there are some amazingly skilled shooters as private citizens. They're like crazy good.
Plenty of time.
Like better than cops. A lot better than cops. And
that's easy though.
Well, no. Well, I mean, it's unfortunate. We don't get to train as much. Like, I'm not even joking. Like the amount of training that law enforcement gets with shooting, if people had any idea how much it was, they'd be like, how much it is, or how little it is, they'd be shaking their head. They'd be shaking their head.
One of my buddies that's an instructor, he's a Green Beret, so he's got plenty of training compared to average people. And we were talking about this because he does a lot of work in the Nashville area with PDs down there. And the thing I hear a lot from various cops is they don't pay me to train. And like some of the local coppers out here talk about, they don't pay me to go to the gym. They don't pay me to run. It's like, well,
Yeah.
nobody pays me to work out every day.
Yeah,
You have to at some point take some responsibility and demand some excellence from yourself.
well, and that's not really a winning attitude, right? I mean, and you're not gonna. So, I mean, the course I took with Spalding, one of the courses the agency paid for. The other course I literally sold a handgun.
You paid for yourself.
Paid for on my own to go. My agency gave me the training days, but the fee, I paid for.
Sure.
And more I'm going to, private classes because there's just the skill set and the level of instruction is phenomenal, and it's an asset, to me, obviously, because you're never good enough, if that makes sense. Like I think I'm a fairly accomplished shooter.
Sure. But is there ever good enough?
But you're never good enough.
Yeah.
You're never good enough. So, I mean, the more you can put into training, and it's not just the firearms training. I mean, it's taking care of yourself, like fitness, especially cardio, and what steps are you taking to improve yourself and improve who you are as a person. And that's where like that kind of drives me nuts. Like, it's like pulling teeth sometimes to get officers to come in the range, and it's ridiculous, right?
A buddy of mine that's a training officer has over his door to his office, you can never train enough for a job that can kill you.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of makes good sense.
But at the same point in time, obviously officers are so busy doing their job.
Sure.
And, then they have to go to court, and then, there's no time for anything other than the job at times. So it makes it really hard to get in the time that they need, which is why, it's frustrating to them, because it's like, hey, my agency should be training me. This isn't like the military where, hey, it's train, right. And then go operate, train, go operate. It's you're working. Oh, by the way, we're going to give you a couple training classes here and there.
Some
right?
agencies where it's twice a year, they go shoot a box of ammo.
Correct.
Right?
And that's it. And that's the reality of law enforcement firing training for so many agencies, just because there's no funds there to make it happen. And that's kind of a thing that needs to somehow get fixed. If the population knew, they're trying to, put this onus on, well, law enforcement should be doing this, doing that. Well, if they had any idea how little training.
Which I got to interject. People always say, well, that's the police chief or the sheriff's problem. For the most part, those people are doing the will of the people, the will of city council, the will of the constituents, that, hey, let's spend money on this feel-good program or on whatever the thing is, a new sign outside the building or whatever.
Whatever you want to call it, it is completely budget related. So, I think everything and every project that, citizen relations are hugely important, because you have to have that outreach. So if you have a community that turns against you, how, difficult your job going to be. So everything the chiefs decide to spend money on is important to the agency. But at the same point in time, you're fighting for pennies when it comes to, buying ammo or, because I run programs now. You're fighting for every penny to come to your program to try and make your, programs you're running better. But at the same point in time, every program's important. It's a difficult balance.
Tires for squad cars and
gas, everything. It's crazy.
Gasoline, paper, computers.
Crazy. Yeah. So you're running, like our budget, it's all public record. You can look at any police agency's budget, right? Our budget's right around 18 million, but it's like, it's battling for pennies out of that 18 million to get what
I think one of the problems, and I'm talking from the perspective of a taxpayer, not a police officer, but what we expect of our policemen. Like, my great-grandfather was a Chicago copper back in the early 1900s into the 30s. So, this is back when they carried clubs and beat people and nobody said or did a thing.
Different times.
Right.
Different times.
But what did we expect the cops to do then? Stop bad people, and that was about it. Drag some kids home. Now you're a counselor, you're a dog chaser, you're a cat up in the tree person.
You are everything, and it's a large expectation. But then again, people need to understand that, hey, there's, on average, one cop for 10 to 12,000 people.
It's crazy.
We're not going to be able to do it for you, all the time, most of the time. I mean, we're going to come, but by the time we get there, well, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're there to clean up.
People need to understand how important it is to, take steps to prepare themselves and their family for if there is a problem. Sure. I mean, and it's just, that's why, there's a tort law like, hey, we can't be held responsible to protect you because it's just an unrealistic expectation.
It's impossible.
It is impossible.
Which Tim is not suggesting that you take the place of police, but it's like a natural law of physics. If there's one person for every 12,000, you can't be with every single one.
I can't be with 12,000 people.
Right.
No, I can't be with 10,000
people.
Even
if you're
I can't
in
be with 12.
A city that has a high ratio of officers to people, it's still not. I'm watching a documentary right now about Flint, Michigan. It's about Did you watch that?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's about their PD. And whatever the number is, person per citizen or cop per citizen, that's like a national average. Mm-hmm. They're like the lowest that there is of like any, because they don't have any money.
Right. Well, that's.
And so like these, like 4 cops out on the streets at night of a city as big as yours or less, and they've got no money, no training.
Correct.
And they're but people are expecting them to keep everything
safe. Correct.
Keep everything intact.
And that's where I mean.
And we don't want to give you any more money in our taxes.
And again, well, that's the issue. And I understand that we are very expensive. But at the same point in time, I mean, that's where it's like, let's be realistic about what we can accomplish. We are doing the absolute best we can. I can guarantee you that every single police officer, they go out there and they work really, really hard.
Sure.
To try and make the world a better place for the community, right? And for the citizens of the community. But at the same point in time, you just have to be, keep your eyes open. And if you see something going on, call us. Mm-hmm. I mean, call us, because then at least we know about it as opposed to not. But it's just, it's a really hard profession to be in now. It's gotten harder and harder the longer I've done it. Times have definitely changed from when I first started in law enforcement
to now. The way the
now.
public views it.
Everything. I mean, just the complexity of the calls and the amount of legality and liability and everything with the job is a lot harder than it was. Times were a lot simpler. Back when I first started, and now it's a lot harder. But you do your best to keep up with everything and do the best job you can.
Which again comes down to a we the people citizen problem.
Correct.
None of those liability issues come from your police chief. They come from citizens demanding and putting demands,
dictating, and we play. We have to play by the rules, the Constitution, obviously, and then the laws of the state of Illinois and the laws of the village of Skokie. So, and then you have everything we have to abide by, and restrictions and case holdings and everything else. So it makes it a very complex position where it's not a position where you really want to be paying somebody only, $24,000 a year at some of these agencies, where
plenty of them do.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And, but yeah, so we're kind of, but we do the best we can.
Which your point about salary brings up. We're talking about the availability of training in our area here. Public servants make a pretty decent living compared to other areas. I've got a friend that works in Louisiana, a big area. I think their starting salary, I think he told me, was $38,000 at their agency. Where up here, it could be twice that.
Could be.
As a starting salary. And I've got a friend on the East Coast that is under sheriff. I think they call them chief deputies in that area. Here, that job might be $160,000 or $170,000 for like a Collar County. I think he makes like $70,000 there.
Right.
So and it still costs the same to buy your kids milk and put gas in the car and all that good stuff. So for those guys to have the $400 or $500 or $600 to train,
makes a big. Well, it's hard, and it's hard, and obviously you got to throw in the cost of living and taxes and everything else. I mean, if I was a state trooper, I'd rather be a state trooper in downstate Illinois than the Chicago area, right? But yeah, I mean, it's just the salary is what it is. Every officer knows the department they're going to, what the salary is, and there's plenty of departments right now that are hiring with some pretty good starting salaries, because right now, I mean, you're kind of in a little bit of a crunch to find qualified people that want to be law enforcement officers. So I mean, that's a struggle. No, yeah, it's not, and And, it's a job where you're working 24 hours a day. I mean, not in a row, but you got to work midnights. You have to work weekends. You have to work holidays. And that's what we do. And people don't want to do that. People don't want to do that. They don't want to make that sacrifice for the community. And that's kind of the thing, like law enforcement officers make a tremendous sacrifice of their personal life for the community and for the profession. And I don't think, yes, you do with any job, I get it, but I think the sacrifice made by law enforcement officers for the community into their personal lives is enormous.
It's a huge emotional toll as well.
Yeah, and that's, the military, obviously, I have the ultimate respect for people in the military. I mean, my father was in the Navy, my two brothers were in the Navy. They go off and they do their tour and they come back, and then they have their downtime. There's no downtime for a law enforcement officer. You're always working, whether that be you're out in the squad car or not, but it never stops because you don't have, that downtime, that personal time, especially if you have to live in the community. You're never able to have that downtime. So that's why I say the emotional toll or the toll, the sacrifice is huge because you never ever get that downtime. You're constantly working. And even if you're off duty, you're not off duty, because you never know the person you might have arrested, the person that you dealt with. I mean, they might be gunning for you at your house or your family. And that's, you never have that downtime. And that's why it's even more important to, kind of always stay alert, always stay vigilant. But then the members of the community need to understand that too as well. Like, hey, if you see something going on or you think it's strange, call, because... So
that's what started you on this thread, was talking about that relationship building between community and officers.
Huge. It's so important.
Now, we have a problem in America right now where people expect that we have subjugated our responsibility to others. We've said, like, you do this, you take care of my personal well-being. This guy over here will fix me when my heart stops because I'm going to eat and do whatever I want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then we expect so much. I've got a friend that's a captain of a firehouse, and he tells me about the crazy lawsuits they get. Junkies shooting themselves up that sue the fire department because they got a bruise when they drug this guy to the ER to get resuscitated.
Held them down after they gave the Narcan, and they're not happy because they ruined the high.
Right. And they're suing because they saved their life.
Yeah, so it happens. But.
So that's to me, a societal problem that requires a lot more than what you and I can do, but we can do our part.
Well, we can talk about it and start the discussion, and make people aware, and then maybe people are right. So, I mean, if everyone starts having realistic dialogues about what's going on.
I think that's should be like a thing that we're teaching our children, basic empathy. This person is doing this. There's cops that are not good people. There's pastors that are not good people.
There's bad everywhere.
Yeah, there is.
Bad
but
everywhere.
I think I agree with you. For the most part, the people doing that job are trying to make a difference of some way, shape, or form in the community that they live and work in, and it's a pretty thankless job. So then you don't add the training budgets to that, and unfortunately, a lot of administrators say, well, the data doesn't support that we invest that much money because the fact that this guy might need his gun 1 in 100 million times doesn't dictate it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where if you get into... you get in a database. I mean, so 98% of our arrests, if not more, it's actually higher than 98% of arrests involve absolutely no force use at all.
Okay.
So, which is great. And I would love for that to be that way. Hey, you're under arrest, put your hands behind your back, put the handcuffs on them, people listen, and they do what we ask them to do, and we take them. And your place... I'd argue is in the courtroom. It's not your place to argue out on the street, right? But then 2%, or for us, it's actually less than 2% of our arrests use force or involve some level of force.
Skokies,
hands on, yeah, okay. And it's pretty close to national. National is a little bit higher, but so 2% involves some use of force, like minimal, right? And then about 0.5% less than that of that 2%. So then of the 2%, 3% involve some actual force. So, you're cut down
3%
of the 2%.
So we're talking 0.000. Okay.
0.003, right? So involve a higher level of use of force. So, the fact that we're out there doing, no, it's so rare. Use of force situations are so rare, and people don't really understand that it's not like we're out, you're going to see the ones on the news, absolutely, and then you're going to say, oh, well, police do that all the time. No.
How many coppers are there in the country? A couple 100,000?
Oh, it's like, I want to say right around 750,000.
So, and then we've got, how many millions? A couple of 100 million citizens.
Like 300 million.
So how many interactions? This is something I talk about with our students, because like there's this perception, not to sidetrack the discussion, there's a perception like among armed citizens that cops are going to be frisking you and taking your gun away. And I always ask, how many times you've been arrested?
Yeah.
How many times you had a cop put his hands on you, and like, what are you doing that this interaction happens? And so my thought process, my point was that there are so many, I don't even know if it's countable how many millions of interactions humans have, citizens have with law enforcement every day, that it's just, hey, what's up?
That's just it. And even with the arrest situations, like I said, so few of the arrest situations. Mm-hmm. Arrest situations aren't even, the number of contacts compared to arrest situations, man, I'd have to go review the data.
So are we right now supporting the case for less training? Is that what we're doing?
See, and that's, but this is where obviously the training is so important, because every time you have a use of force situation, police officer liability and department liability, and therefore the community liability, use of force situations is the number one liability issue to those communities. So, when you come to the lawsuits and settlements on suits and judgments on suits, that's where all the big money payouts are going. Is a use of force situation. And that's where all the liability and suits are coming against agencies, right? So failure to train is an automatic loser on a suit in a use of force issue. So if you're going to look at the payout numbers, and let's look at the data the way the payout numbers is, the training for use of force is most important. Second.
So once you add up all of that liability.
Second amount would be for, illegal search and seizure and improper arrest. Is the second amount of liability we were exposed to as an officer, right? So, but monetarily wise, use of force payouts or use of force decisions is huge. So, and if you're not doing the training in those areas, like I said, that's an automatic loser, failure to train. Departments have to show that they're training.
So just for example, so people understand, somebody files a suit and says that Officer Smith used unnecessary amount of force with me. I'm assuming the defense attorney would subpoena training records. And when there isn't enough or lack thereof, it's like a win for the defense.
It would be a win for the plaintiff, for them to go after the department, So that's plaintiff, a huge issue, No, that's all right.
Try to stay away from legal proceedings.
Unfortunately, that's probably a good thing. But no, as far as the, you kind of brought it up a little bit in the armed citizen or the concealed carry holder. You look at any data and any statistic; those are the most law-abiding citizens out there, right? Which is great. And for me, it's my personal belief, because, it depends where you are in the ladder of agencies. But speaking from a street cop, I have the utmost respect and admiration and need for a concealed carry holder, if that makes sense. Because again, I'm there by myself. Right? Or I've got backup coming to me 3 minutes away. Some other law enforcement has backup coming 20 to 30 minutes away. Right? So it's kind of like a force multiplier. If you look at any ratio, the better the ratio is on the good side against the bad side, obviously your outcome's going to be better or have a better chance of having a positive outcome. So to me, that's why it's so important, again, that, however you want to prepare, you do whatever you want. But if people are going to take the time to make the decision to purchase and own a firearm, well, then please take the time to get training and to know what you're doing with that firearm and understand the legalities involved and the responsibilities involved, because it's a huge responsibility. Don't just go up and buy a gun to buy a gun. If you're going to buy into the weapon, then buy into the importance of training and research and understanding what you're doing and how and when to use it, and to know how to do that well, and that's kind of really important. You can go whichever side of the 2A argument you want. I don't really care, but I'm going to tell you, hey, it's really important, and if you're going to do that, do it the right way.
I agree.
So
that's kind of the premise of our training business is
do it the right way,
or don't have it at all. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Well, if you're going to have it, you need to have it responsibly.
Yeah,
and that's the way I advocate for it. And take the steps.
Let's go back to where you left off in the story. So you were able to, you got prone.
Mm-hmm.
You put 3 center mass hits into this bank robber.
3 CNS shots, yeah.
Okay.
And then held on him. Detective now Sergeant Barnes and Detective Mendez showed up, backed me up. They were the next 2 officers there. So I was just holding cover. They showed up. Mendez went and took the offender into custody. Barnes came and checked on me. Ambulance is for transport, so he was still alive, still had vitals at the time. So at that point in time, he had 17 hits. So wow. 14 body, 7. So he had heart shot, double lung, kidney, pelvis. So 7, in theory, what should have been fatal hits, right? And then he had a bunch on arms.
And these were all 45 caliber.
45 caliber, spear gold dot, 230 grain spear gold dot, shot out of a Glock 21.
And so, just so not to talk ill of the dead, but this man was still alive when he got taken off the scene.
Correct.
And was still fighting up until those 3 CNS hits, which is central nervous system is what he's saying. And he was still fighting until that.
Correct.
So
correct.
That's so important for people to understand, because we think, based on movies, media, you shoot somebody with a gun and they
just fall over on their dead. Yeah, it doesn't. And that's not.
As a pound of lead you put into
the reality is ugly. Okay, so reality is ugly, and people sometimes don't want to deal with the ugly truths of reality. And unfortunately, we deal in reality every day, and people. I think one of the biggest issues is people need to have their eyes opened up to reality, because I think we're so sheltered right now in the lives we live, and everything wants to be perfect, or it's not that way. Mm-hmm. And that's why, he was, obviously very strong-willed, and obviously I'm fairly strong-willed, and I'm thankful for the training I had. Obviously, God was definitely watching out for me. Mm-hmm. That day, for sure.
That one that went between your head and the car seat.
Yeah, so it's just, I'm blessed and lucky.
Now, you did get some hits? Something skipped off the
pavement? So I caught one on the shin, like a frag, so he put one in my shin. And then the other stuff I had like spawned from the glass. From the one to the windows.
After all of the rounds he sent, not one hit.
No.
And now, if memory serves from what I had read, he had a rifle in the car.
Yeah, so he had his 2 handguns. So he fired, 21 at me with the 2 handguns. He had an SKS with a 30-round mag in the front seat in a box.
Which is basically an AK-47 for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, loaded up, ready to go.
Thank God he didn't get his hands on that.
Yeah, no, that would have been, so I didn't know he wanted to go 3-gun. But, it's just, and then, this is where, so I had my 21 on me. I had a Glock 26 as backup, right? I had a Remington 870 in the rack above my head with 5 slug rounds in it. Since I was on our SWAT team, our TAU, I had my AR-15 in the trunk, loaded up with a 30-rounder on 5 AR mags, spare mags in the back with my SWAT kit. But you're not going to get to any of that because things just happen so fast. I mean, you have people talking about like, oh, I got my my car gun or whatever. If you don't have it on, you forget about it.
I just had somebody yesterday ask me. The guy says, I carry a Glock 17, but I want to get XYZ gun for my truck. And should I get this gun or that gun? Blah blah blah. I said, get a couple more 17 mags. That's what I told him.
Yeah, we'll carry that.
Get 2 more 17 mag, because the chance of like what you're saying, even if your trunk was open,
You're not getting to it.
When it was charged and sitting there, you would have had to be able to maneuver to get to it.
Unless you know you're going to the gunfight, right?
I think I've heard that from every gunfight winner that I've ever talked with is you have what you have.
You have what you have.
Yeah.
So know how to use what you have. But like I said, if you know you're going, I'm a rifle fan, right? I'm a sniper on our SWAT team. I do the snipers, right? But if I could take my rifle with me everywhere, I would take my rifle with me everywhere.
Sure.
Okay, I would just be a lot happier, right? So if you know you're going, well, grab your rifle, right? But if not, you got what you got, right?
That's why those kind of cute isms like the handgun's the gun you use to fight. It's like it's fun to say when you're on the gun.
That's all bullshit,
it is.
right?
It is total bullshit.
That's not, it's just crap. And then all the 45 is better than the 9 is better than those are all stupid. A handgun round is a handgun round. I mean, if you look at the ballistics, handgun rounds do what handgun rounds do. Right? I don't care what handgun round it is. So if you want to say a 45 is better than a 9, if that makes you feel happy, okay, fine, a 45 is better than a 9. Do I love a 45? Yeah, absolutely. I love my 45. Yeah.
Just so the listeners are aware, you're not talking about things like a 32 Smith & Wesson or when you say handgun.
When I'm talking defensive handgun rounds, so let's go 940, 45, 357. Right. So, I mean...
I just want to make sure people understand.
And let's understand, if we're going to talk about a defensive handgun round, if you're not talking about a 9, a 40, a 357 SIG, or a 45, okay, I don't know what the hell I don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Right? So you should be, for a defensive handgun round, that's what you should be in. That's a platform you should be in, right? So then out of that platform, pick what you like. Okay, pick what you like, because they all do the exact same thing. But then, for me... I made a switch from the 45 to the 9, which obviously, I did that for two main reasons, or three. If you know handgun rounds all do the same thing, right? So let's pick one of those handgun rounds. Now let's look at the advantages of the handgun round. So if you go to that 9 platform, especially with the modern ammo technology, and yes, I know that ammo technology applies to the 45, and I get it. It's all the same ammo technology moving up, right? Okay, so, but again, if you want to stick to those defensive rounds, they all do the same thing.
Sure.
Let's not kid each other. They all do the same thing. And over a Predator, oh my God. Okay, so we could talk about this stuff forever. We could talk ballistics forever. Why have that discussion? Let's have the discussion of reality. Okay, so reality is, I went to the 9. Okay, the reason why I went to the 9 is capacity. Okay. So capacity is huge. Oh, you should just aim better. Well, no. Okay, fine. Whatever. I got 17 hits on the guy, right? It's not about necessarily aiming better. Yes, you should aim. And yes, I'm going to tell you, hey, go for the CNS shot as soon as you can so you can stop that fight right away, right? Because the body shots, they're still going to fight. Maybe you're lucky. Maybe they'll drop. But, you should aim better. No, I think I aimed pretty good. Okay, 50% hit rate in a gun battle is pretty good hit ratio, okay? So it's not like you're shooting at paper. There's someone shooting at you. You're moving. You're running. This is not X-ring bullseye target shooting. It doesn't happen. And then you get, whatever. So I'm kind of digressing a little bit because this is just stuff you see in the internet.
People to hear this stuff.
And then they're like, well, why didn't you shoot him here? Why didn't you shoot him here? Listen, take the hits you can make. Okay? If he's showing a hand and you can hit his hand.
This is like a boxing match.
Yes.
Anybody can stand and strike a bag, but when the bag is slipping.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if you can hit a leg, hit the leg, right? Because that might make a difference, right?
This is a good point when people say, why didn't that cop just shoot that guy in the leg?
Oh my God!
When they feel that it's like a overuse of force, or why did he shoot 17 times? Did anybody bring up in this? Why did you shoot that many times?
No. I didn't get into that because I think, obviously, I fired 33 rounds at him and he shot 21 at me. So it's not like there's much of a debate about what was going on here, right?
It wasn't he was on a cell phone. It was
it was 56 seconds long of shooting, and they can say it was shooting. So none of that really came up with mine. But kind of back to the switch to the 9, right? So if you want to carry that 45, okay, good. God, that's great. Great. I'm glad you decided that. Fine, no worries. What's the capacity on a 45? So Glock 21, which I carried when I carried the Glock 21, because it was one of the higher capacity carrying 45s, and my hands are fairly big, and I can grip the gun no problem, right? So the reason why I carried the Glock 21 was because a high capacity 45 was I thought was important. I didn't go with like a SIG 220 where I'm only going to get 8 or 9, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm in a high capacity 45 because I'm going to still say capacity is huge. And,
gives you more opportunities
and again,
to make holes.
Don't give me the argument, oh, well, you should just shoot better. That's just, I'll tell you what, let's go out there, let's shoot at each other, and we'll see how well you aim. It's a stupid argument, right?
Not to mention you never know if that person's on crack, on meth, on whatever.
It's a stupid argument.
Refuses to die, has on body armor.
Right, and that's where like, oh, you read the comments like, well, you should have just slowed down from the start. Well, listen, the hits I made from inside the car through the auto glass, I made hits. And if you look at the round count, you know that I made hits through the windshield, right? The running shots, you know I made hits when I was running on the move point shooting, and you know I made hits when I laid prone, right? And you don't always have time to sit there and just like, oh, okay, slow down. No, it's not the way it works, right? So, but back to capacity. So if you want to go with that 45, and I'll take the 9, okay, and we'll say that the average shooter shoots 5 rounds a second. Now you're a pretty quick shooter, right?
That's average. That's a good one.
So let's say average is 5. So I'll say you're probably 6 or 7 rounds per second.
But maybe. I would try to be more like 4 or 5 in this scenario.
Okay. So if you average shooting is 5 rounds a second, and you're carrying that single stack 45, say a 220 or the 1911 or whatever, because you're 45,
or even a little pocket gun,
Glock 21, right? Whatever you want to say. And I have 13 rounds in that gun. So 5 rounds a second or 6 rounds a second, I shoot right around 6 rounds a second because it's not really slower than that. It's faster because speed wins, okay? Speed's going to win, and every eighth of a second matters, whether that be reaction time, trigger time, whatever. Okay, speed's going to win because the more rounds I can get on you faster, obviously it's advantageous to me, not advantageous to you. So if you carry that 45 and you got that 8 round 45, you're going to run out in what? Second and a half, right? So I've got my Glock 17, was 17 or 18 rounds. When am I running out?
Yeah, and this is the beauty is now I'm doing this while you're still doing this.
Exactly. Yeah. So 5, 6 rounds a second. So I'm shooting for 3 seconds. You're shooting for a second and a half, and you're doing a reload. I don't know how fast you reload.
Let's just say average person's 3 seconds is pretty darn quick
for a reload. Sure. Okay, so let's say, so if you're really good at comp shooter, we're going to be faster than that. But
I'm saying average Joe out on the.
So right there, I am now shooting at you without you being able to shoot at me for a second and a half, or I'm able to put 6 rounds on you. Non-contested, which is a lot nicer than being shot at while you're shooting, right? So then we go through those reloads, okay, and we do that again. So every time
that
gap's better in my favor with high capacity, which is why I'll sit here and argue capacity with you, and enough with the caliber talk with handguns, because again, you look at the ballistic tests on handgun rounds. Okay, they all do the exact same thing. Okay, they all penetrate like 12 to 18 inches. They're all going to have the 45 expands more. Well, yes, it does. Okay, great. But if I put 2 holes with you in the 9 compared to 1 with a 45, what's got a greater expansion? Because I've got those rounds available to me. And then you can talk about if I have the rounds available to me and you give me that hit on your foot, or you give me that hit on your ankle or that hit on your hand, okay, I've got that round to take that hit. Because if I can get that hand or foot out of the fight, is that advantageous to me? Yes, it's advantageous to me. So why would you not take that? And then, the whole, oh my God, well, why did you miss? Are you kidding me? So you look at military engagements. What's the hit ratio for a military engagement?
It's really low.
It's like less than 1%, right? Because why are they throwing all those rounds downrange? Okay, because it's advantageous to them. Because while they're throwing all those rounds downrange, what's the other person doing? Okay, they're keeping their head down, right? And they're not exactly shooting back, right? So then that allows them to move, okay, and flank to then eliminate, right? So if you can keep someone from moving and keep someone in a spot and you're able to move and flank, then that's a huge advantage to you, right? But you can't do that if you don't have those rounds available.
If you're out of ammo.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, that's why we can have you can argue it any way you want to, and people can sit on here and, they can blow it up from the basement and be like, oh, well, that makes 0 sense, or I'm a 45 person, or I'm a this person. Great. I don't care what you are, but if you want to be the 45 person, then do the 45 well. really well. If you want to be the revolver person, then do the revolver well.
Sure.
Like really well. And if you're going to sit here and say, oh, well, you can't shoot, you miss. Well, everybody misses. The average hit ratio is 20 to 50%, right? So that's the hit ratio. So 50% misses or 80% misses. Everyone's missing in a gun battle. Okay. This isn't shooting a stationary target that's not shooting back at you.
Which, in saying that, then should tell us, how are we training? What are we training for?
Correct. So, and if you want to get into the training, obviously I'm lucky to have been, on the SWAT team or our TIU team. And the training there is we obviously do a ton of force on force, a ton of simulations training. And if you can't get the simulations, then go paintball, right? Where you're paintballing against each other, because you're going to learn angles and what works and what doesn't work really, really quick when you're actually having force come back at you. But not only are you going to learn that, and that's why I like sims, because they really hurt. Paintballs don't really hurt, as much. But if you're going to have the stimulus of being hit with a sim, and you're going to realize, yeah, that kind of hurts, right? Oh, but I'm still alive. But you're going to take away that lesson, like, hey, maybe I should not do that exactly,
right?
Because that doesn't work out. But the other benefit is you need to train and get acclimated to or conditioned to having a weapon pointed at you. Right? And seeing that and reacting to that. Because if you're not training someone pulling a gun at you, right? Okay, well, what do you do when that happens the first time? You're going to, which is a natural reaction. So you're always going to have the starter reaction. So let's take the starter reaction of this and turn it into this. Okay? Where we're actually drawing and coming up, where it's recognition and then conditioned reaction.
So we're training for the outcome that we desire.
Correct.
Rather than just saying, well, whatever happens, I'm going to hope for the best.
Correct. And conditioning yourself to reality, that's a really important training to go through, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So, and people don't do enough of that. They just want to go be like, oh, I'm going to hit these splits, or, I'm going to look at how many X-ring hits I got. It's like, okay, great. Well, but if you're in a shooting, do you really want them all in one spot, or maybe do you want to spread them out a little bit?
Sure.
So, it's just, there's so much to this, and it's just, there's so much on the, on the internet now, and you see it and you look and you just shake your head, and kind of cringe, because there's so much misinformation and stuff that's put out there. You're like, oh my God, really? What are they talking about? But it's important, Do you
remember when this guy got out of the car and started shooting at you, what you were thinking about? Was it like, holy shit, this is happening? Was it
no, it was just immediate reaction. And that's my point, because the training, that's exactly why. So it's C gun. Okay, I'm reaching over, I'm drawing, I'm coming up, and I'm going to shoot back, and I'm going to shoot back through the windshield, because I know it can do that.
Even after years of being on the police department, I've heard some guys, like, they have never made that line where, if this happens, I'm going to employ deadly force. So you didn't have to even think. There was no, is that a gun?
See gun, use gun.
Okay.
Right? And people say, well, why didn't you run him over the car? Hey, that's a great tactic. Guess what? See gun, use gun. It worked for me. I stopped. I'm putting it in a park. I don't know if he's foot billing, then guess what? I got to pull my keys too, so he doesn't run a house and hop into my squad car, right? So, you can analyze it on 2 1 2. Yeah.
Sucker started.
Well, yeah, but that's my point. And people that, hey, you can look at gun battles, and the way I look at it is, there's so much critique of gun battles out there. It's just absolutely ridiculous. The question I have is this: Did the, we'll talk about law enforcement shootings, right? Did the officer win? Yes or no? Did they win? Yes or no? If they won, they did a phenomenal job, because they won, right? Sure. So, I mean, are you going to sit here and analyze this? Did they win? Yes or no? Did they win that gun battle? If they won, they did a great job, because they were there. They responded to what they did the way that they felt was best in the time. They were in the moment. They did the best job they could. They can won. Correct.
And add to that, you knew this dude was a violent felon that had just robbed a freaking bank and had a gun.
Yeah.
You didn't know. It wasn't like you pulled somebody over because they rolled a stop sign. You knew you were pulling over somebody that had just walked into a bank and committed a felony.
Exactly. So, in that, obviously that puts you in the mindset, but that's kind of my point. You always have to be in the mindset, right? So no matter who you are, if you're a police officer, if you're a citizen, it doesn't matter. If you are not running through in your head, hey, if this happens, I'm going to do this, right? If there's a fire in the theater, where's the escape route, right? Where am I going to go? Where am I going to take my family? Apply it to whatever you want, right? If you're not running through scenarios in your head and mentally training, what am I going to do if this happens? You're shorting your training. So that's kind of important. It's not always just getting reps in. It's running scenarios and situations through your head and actually train mentally and prepare mentally for if something does happen.
During that 56 seconds, did you have any time to process, or was it, I don't want to say autopilot, did you remember having any thoughts about anything? Like people say, a friend of mine that had an occurrence like this said he kept thinking, this isn't going to take me away from my kids. He said that kept coming into his head, and he remembered that like dominating thought. Did you have any thoughts like that?
So, me, I was going home. That was my son's birthday. That day? I was going home. So there was no way I wasn't going home. Again, I was an athlete my whole life. I played D1 soccer. I don't like to lose. And there's just something to not wanting to lose, right? And the competitiveness of, you don't want to lose, you don't want to lose.
High stakes here.
Very high stakes, yeah. But
not a trophy.
No, but at the same point in time, if you develop that competitiveness and you have to understand the amount of work that goes into it, though. You're going to lose if you don't prepare, right? And if you don't train and if you don't put in the practice time for whatever that is, right? So that's why people need to understand how just important the practice time is, right? And the training. So in everything you do in training, how everything matters. Because like when I did my reloads, those were automatic. Okay, didn't even think about reloading. And then thinking through the tactics, so if you want to think about random thought, it's like, oh, hey, shit, I just shot my tire on my car. Okay, I just shot my squad car.
That popped in your head or not?
Yeah, that's not working. But just to think through the tactic, hey, I might as well try skipping rounds under the car with this guy because it seems like nothing else is working so far, right? So I might as well try it. Like shooting through the glass, well, we've done that. That's automatic, right? Well, people are like, oh, I can't shoot through my glass. Well, yeah, you can shoot through your glass, but I've done that. Now, had you not done that, well, maybe I wouldn't have done it, right? But so reloads on the move, those were automatic because that's just what you train, what you do. So there's no conscious thought. Like, it's like, okay, read your gun, slide back, okay, reload, right? So, and that's the other thing. I mean, these were emergency reloads. These weren't, because you're running through rounds.
Which means he ran the gun
weapon dry, slide back, yeah. So these are emergency reloads, okay, because you're using every single round and they are going in a hurry. Okay, people don't quite understand how quickly you're going to run empty, right? So, train the reloads and train tactical reloads and train those things. But if you're in the moment, things run out in a hurry. Okay, so always have extra with you. You get all the criticism. Oh, why do you carry me so many rounds now? Because I carry a lot of rounds now, right? Because I carry 33 round sticks with me, and then I carry 3 mags instead of 2.
Do you carry 33 rounders with you?
Yeah, I carry 2. And they're like, oh, you'll sink. Well, no, it's 2 more pounds to switch from the 9 to 45. There's a weight savings with the ammo savings, right? Sure. Because 45 obviously weighs a lot more than 9.
Did you work the slide? Or like that, do you remember? And how do you train to do that?
So when I did the slide then, it would have been over the top. Okay. But that's when I was trained. Now, more and more, I just release the slide with the slide release lever. Okay, and like when I run my rifle, like my AR, I'm releasing the bolt with my thumb. Okay, so, but if you train it, it's going to happen, if that makes sense. But then it also depends on your weapon system, right? Because I'll run my SIG 226, completely different from my 1911, completely different from my Glocks, right? So what's your familiarity with the weapon system? Because every weapon system you might need to run differently. A Beretta, you're going to run different than a ground. You're not going to overhand rack a Beretta. It's not going to happen. You're going to hit the slide release, right? I mean, if you're not, well, okay, unless you like cuts on your hand, right? So you have to know your weapon system and run your weapon system appropriately, right? So and that all comes down to familiarity and training with that, weapon system, right? So
I like it.
Yeah.
My buddy Z says exposure equals composure is what he likes to talk about. That's what he tells his students. That was the Green Beret I was telling you about earlier. And it's amazing how whatever the thing is in life, we often assume that we'll just sort it out. We'll just figure it out. We'll just get there. And when it comes down to something like that, even it might not even be actual gunfight. How about just how do I deal with somebody coming at me aggressively? What am I going to do? Well, I don't know. I'll figure it out when I get there.
No, and that's a great line. I love it. And that's so true because, I refer to it as, conditioning, right? Conditioning the situation, right?
Yeah.
So, but exposure to the situation, right? So how do you expose yourself? And repetitions is huge.
As long as you're doing it right.
Correct. But then if you're not doing it right in the repetitions, you need to freeze it, fix it, and then repeat it, right?
Which is why having somebody like what you do at your department, so you've been trained, so you know how to do it right. So when you got a new guy that's doing it wrong, you can say, hey, John, slow down. Let me show you the right way.
Let's go through the right way, and let's see how. And then they see the effect of doing it the right way and how it works, and then that kind of sticks in, the brain, and then they'll do it again the right way the next time.
That's a big problem with this media where people go on YouTube, Facebook, and they watch videos, and then they're like, okay, I'll just do that. And you don't. When I started shooting, I remember there was the internet wasn't what it is, and Mas Ayub had a course locally. I remember I'd talked to him on the phone, and I drove and did a class with him and Bob Housingay, who still is teaching. And that was the only dude in the area if I didn't go to a police range and train with policemen. And at that time, you had to fill out an affidavit that you were not a criminal, had to get a letter from local state's attorney or sheriff that you were not in a bad person to go train.
Yeah.
And that was the only exposure to that. Now you can watch this stuff, and even there's guys that mimic movements that they've seen, watching professionals do it, but they don't understand the context of it.
Yeah, and yeah. So, the internet's a great tool, and I'll watch the internet, a lot, because if I obviously have had the benefit of getting a ton of firearms training. So I'm a master firearms instructor certified in the state of Illinois. All my range officers are MFIs, or they're going to be, so we're working on getting them there. So for me to watch a video with the experience and exposure I've had and the training I've had, I can pick up technically on what the shooter's doing, and then I can try that and see how that works out for me. But if you haven't had the exposure or experience, you're just going to go out there and try that, but you're not going to understand the why, right? So it's kind of really important to understand the why when it comes to firearms training and what's working. So if you're not going to get the why to it, and you're going to do it, you might be able to pick it up on your own, and you'll pick up some stuff. But if you don't understand the why, and that why is not explained, you're not really going to grasp the concept and how that's effective. So that's really kind of important. And that's why it's really important to go to those instructors, right? And if you're going to take that class, ask questions, get the why. And if they're not going to explain that why to you, something's wrong, right? If they can't understand the why, something's wrong.
That's a big one.
So, seek out the good instructors and the ones that get good ratings.
And there's so many now.
There are some great instructors out there. We're lucky now where, that wasn't out there before. So now we're lucky.
It's literally, if you have the will to go train, you can find somebody everywhere. I in my phone, my phone log, I probably have 100 names of people that are that person's passing on great information.
Good trainers.
There's so many.
Which is important.
Yeah.
And then, if you see, there's a lot of knucklehead stuff out there, and you're like, oh my God, you see a lot of knucklehead stuff, right? And try and avoid the knucklehead stuff. And that's where it's good to watch. If you get on the quality trainers, YouTube videos or websites, and you see what they're doing, and they're, it's hard for them because they need to make money. So if it goes on YouTube and people don't want to go take the class, they're really missing out on the important part of the training, right? But it's still good for them to share, and that's kind of one thing that sharing knowledge, especially in the firearms community, I think is huge. Where there's a lot of new gun owners out there, a lot of novice gun owners out there, and if the experienced gun owners would just stop acting like asses, for lack of a better way of putting it, like, I'm the best or greatest or whatever. Can you just help the new shooters, please, and get them involved in the sport and be kind to them in the sport and try and kind of get them on the right way and make it an enjoyable experience. I can't say how many times, because I'll go shoot at public ranges a lot more now, even though I could just shoot at work. It's fine. I'll go pay and shoot at public ranges just to go with other people that can't come to my range, friends, whatever, yeah. But then you'll see the struggling new shooter at the range, and it's like, hey, do you want help? You'll see they put their ammo in the magazine backwards, and instead of belittling them and think that you're an arrogant, just don't be an arrogant person. Just be kind.
You can say it.
Well, I don't want to say it because I try and be polite, right?
There is a ton of that macho ego nonsense.
It's just ridiculous. Just be kind. Just be kind and help. Hey, do you need help? Do you understand? Hey, you're the reason why it's not. You're putting the bullet in the magazine backwards, and there's a way to do that. So just can I show you the right way? Can I be helpful as opposed to, oh my God, you dumbass, you put the bullet in the magazine backwards. And what are we gonna? It's like, come on, like. You don't need that. Help them. The
big picture, from my perspective, is we're trying to be safer. We're trying to live long, full lives. So if it's not to show how many guns I own or how.
It's not. We need to make it more of a community, right? If that makes sense. Where it's a community where, hey, you take the new shooters under your wing and kind of help them, and it's not always about, do I need to get paid, or it's not about the money at this point. I think, to be honest with you, when it comes to helping somebody, you're going to help them protect themselves and defend their life, right? Sure. So, if you can be kind enough to help that person for 30 seconds, a minute, 5-10 minutes, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? If you can be kind enough to help them and make it an enjoyable day in the range, instead of being, why are we trying to just, you want to be that asshat? Are they going to want to go back? I went to the range, it was my first time shooting, and this person totally belittled me or was an asshole, right? Why are we doing that to people? Especially now with everything going on, I think we need to be more encouraging and kind.
I agree.
And help. So
I agree. There's so much good information out there. There's so much bad information, and we're not doing the public. You touched on it, that you appreciate that there's good people out there with guns. I don't want good people out there with guns that are dangerous with them, though. No. So just like we don't want dangerous drivers or teachers that would hurt children. There's all kinds of people that are in positions where they're not malicious, but through negligence or a lack of
training, knowledge, and experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They can be in all kinds of things. A home ec teacher can hurt you with boiling water if they're a dummy.
Exactly.
So we want people to demand excellence in their training. So 56 seconds could have taken your life. You said no. What's the takeaway for everybody here?
Just be ready. Be ready. You're never good enough. So, my training since my incident, I had great training before, but my training since my incident has skyrocketed. And you really got to want to win. But part of wanting to win, there's a difference between wanting to win and taking the steps to put yourself in a winning position. And there's also a lot of luck involved, and a lot of, like I said, God was looking out for me. So you got a lot of that too. But you got to take the steps to win and make yourself better. Would be the biggest takeaways. And just be alert, know your surroundings. So many people have their heads buried in their phone right now, where you're just walking around, you're a victim. It's completely, you got to be aware of your surroundings and what's going on.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of people that toss the whole mindset, like, hey guys, mindset's important. Make sure you got a good mindset. And then that's the discussion of it.
What does that mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like that Youre mentioned earlier, that you have cultivated in yourself a desire to prevail, be it soccer or somebody shooting at you. You don't just say to yourself, I'm a winner, and that's how it works. You have to cultivate that through time. Adversity comes, you cultivate, that's a bad thing. It might be trouble with work or argument with your wife. not that you're going to win the argument, but you're going to
and
figure
you're never
it
winning
out.
that argument. No.
Do you know what I'm saying? Though
Yeah.
you look at those challenges in life and you decide, I'm going to sort it out. I'm going to overcome it.
Right.
And that's
Problem solve.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
how you develop that, where it will manifest in any area.
Yeah.
Rather than I hope this will work out.
No, that's you gotta go in with a plan and a strategy, and obviously, circumstances dictate tactics, right? So, in every circumstance is individual, right? So you're not going to sit here and say, if this happens, I'm going to do this. No, if you got to be fluid. Yeah, you have to be fluid in the decision making and what you're doing. It's not like, but at the same point in time, you train the tactic and you can apply that tactic. So you want to try and put tactics into the, I hate to use the word, but you want to have tactics in the toolbox, right? So, I know I hate that word, right? But you want to have tactics, trained tactics available that you can draw on based on the circumstance. And the most important part, I guess, is knowing which tactic to apply for the circumstance, right? Making a good decision.
And that's where a lifetime of training comes in.
Correct.
Because
you can draw on it. And that's why you need to study, right? I mean, you're not going to learn how to play chess from studying chess. You have to experience chess, right? So, but the person that can make better decisions, okay, in applying the tactic is really going to be helpful, right?
You brought something up a minute ago, like we could analyze play by play what you did that day in 2008 and say, well, you could have stopped 50 feet shorter or farther away.
Should have.
Well, sure, but you didn't, and you played the hand that was right there because you didn't get to tell this guy when to get out of his car and violently attack you.
Correct.
So even if you had been 50 feet, he could have shot at you when you walked up to him, and then you had no cover. Correct. So it worked out the way it did, and you dealt with what you had.
And could I have done things better? Absolutely. And I could sit here and exactly, you could analyze it and break it down.
Do you do that ever with that scenario? Does it come back
with
to
mine?
you?
I mean, obviously, so that, like say the next time I got in a chase with a guy that was wanted for, he had a homicide warrant and he was doing takeover robberies, right? Well, that next chase, okay, I stopped maybe 40 feet back, right? But he foot bailed. Right, so now I'm 40 feet behind him for the foot chase.
I see.
So the tactic worked out well for me because, he didn't shoot at me. He shot at me. But I mean, what's the percentage of people running on foot compared to people shooting at you on chases? I mean, they run on foot a lot more. Trust me, right? So he foot bailed. So I'm now 40 feet behind him. Did we catch him? Yes, we caught him. Okay, but because of my incident, so I now do felony stops from a little bit further distance, right? The other huge change is like if I know I'm going to something like. We made an immediate change where it's not a shotgun in the squad car anymore. It's a rifle. So we have AR-15 in every squad car now, which is great. And if I know I'm going to something, like if I knew I was going to this, I would have been loading up the AR-15, have it out ready to go. Right? So, I mean, those are changes you make because obviously I want the firepower from a rifle and a rifle round over a handgun round any day. So I'll get that rifle ready to go, right? A lot sooner. Where I gauge that. So but you can analyze it forever. But again, so now I'll apply different tactics based on learned behavior, right? But it's just constantly learning. And if you're not constantly learning, there's a problem. So, yeah.
Constantly analyzing, developing new responses.
Yeah.
But I was just reading Bill Jordan's book last night, which I've read many times, No Second Place Winners. And it's funny because I think that was written in like 1956 or something.
Probably a while ago,
and he's discussing the draw stroke and what I'm reading about. And it's the same thing that we know and teach today. And it's funny because he knew it then, but then people created like shit that didn't work. And all he's saying is little of movement as possible to get the thing pointed at the thing you want to shoot. Done. And we like overcomplicate the heck out of stuff.
You know what? I mean, there's really nothing new out there when it comes to shooting. There's not anything that new
fancier
out there.
Tools, but it's still a hunk of metal
you
flying.
have better equipment, but when it comes to the actual, hey, let's get our sights on what we want to shoot and let's pull the trigger, right? So there's not much new. I mean, you can do this or that, or with your stance or this or that, or tweak this or that, or this, yeah, okay, great. But that's all been done before, right? So find something that works for you, but then also find something else that works for you, because you might not always have what works for you, right?
Sure.
So just practice.
I like it. I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
No worries.
I know that we'll get a lot of value out of it. We appreciate every time somebody has a discussion like this, because this was so well documented. There's tons of data that was gleaned from it, right? So that's kind of like people oftentimes say, why you look at police shootings instead of civilian shootings. And people don't understand that if you were Joe Schmo driving home from work, there wouldn't have been all the same data gleaned from it, because you were a cop. People don't look at that.
Yeah, and obviously, the amount of reporting that's involved and the investigation that's involved in an officer-involved shooting is huge. So, and like you can actually, in Illinois, if you go on the Better Government Association's website, you can find every police officer-involved shooting in Illinois, because it was subpoenaed, or FOIA'd rather, and then the Better Government Association posted it. But, all the law enforcement shootings are FOIAble, right? So you can find out everything about any single one, right? And then obviously now we have the body cam. Well, we don't have body cams, but we have squad car cameras, we have body cams, there's body cams. And so there's so much data available from a law enforcement shooting that's not available for a private citizen shooting. But that's why, they're all shootings, right? Still shootings, right? So exactly. So that's why, it's just an available avenue to study, because there's lots of information out there.
So if you guys want to see or read about the actual report or newspaper clippings, Google Tim Gramins, you'll see it.
It's there.
Skokie PD. Thank you so much, man.
No, thanks for having me.
It means a lot that you did that. If you guys have questions, this will be posted up everywhere, but if you're watching this on YouTube, just put a comment in the bottom and we'll see if we can't get you an answer.
There you go.
Be safe. Be well.
Thanks a lot, bro.
Visit our website, carrytrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., Carry Trainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@carrytrainer.com or carrytrainer.com.